गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today is a very interesting day, and for the simple reason that we're going to do two subjects. One, we'll talk about the Chinese FDI, like I showed it earlier, and the second, we'll talk about Canada's information warfare against India. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from uh, China or from Canada? What are the motives? So we'll do both, and we'll go through the whole thing. And then, of course, we'll have the open house. Talk what you want and shoot what you want. I already see a few questions, but I'll take all of them on. Okay, here we go. Let's go with my slides, because without that, you'll not understand what I'm going to talk. Yeah. Let's get back to Chinese FDI, greedy businessmen, and crooked CAs. There's a lot of talk after this LAC disengagement and all that. That this was entirely presaged on Chinese FDI coming in. While that talk is not much in our press, but in the Chinese media, it's flooded. The Chinese think tanks expect India to open up. Let's be very clear about it. They expect India to open up for many reasons. And they feel it is India's requirement to open up, and that's why India has come forth with this proposal. And they feel that India is not able to meet its expenditure of troops and everything on the LAC. And it also feels that India can't progress without Chinese FDI. A very serious thing. It's their point of view. But there is also equally great lobby which says we want FDI. It's complementary to that extent. But there are seams in this. This is not seamless. Okay, and let's get into those seams first. What are the whole seams? But before we get into the seams also, like I always do, I go to the other side of the fence. I see what the Chinese think. And from there, we'll extrapolate backward what is going to happen to us. Okay. Right. Now, this is a website which is called guancha.cn. Guancha.cn is owned by a person, Chinese, very nationalistic, educated in Stanford. That's the interesting bit. And he comes and he starts this media platform. It is absolute hardcore China nationalist. Completely toes the communist line. You see what shall I say? Their website. It's on the website after it's a web platform. 70% of the news is about China or USA or their problems. 30% is for others. And India, as far as he is concerned, is a non-entity, almost. And the way he discusses India in this website is disparaging. This is just one article I put. What views I'm going to now show to you about Chinese view of India, unadulterated. When you go through what I'm going to show you, I mean, even this is edited and translated and put to you. Actually, Global Times comes as if it's very diplomatic. Global Times, whom we consider it to be a very coarse Chinese mouthpiece, feels very sophisticated after you read this. And this is one of the most popular media platforms. And if you go into that, you do use the translate option and see the thing, you'll be astounded at how Chinese feel about India. Okay, what do they say? And this is there. And this is what their macro view is about this deal. He says, and India-China relations. He says, China emphasizes that development is the largest convention between India and China. Development. Their focus is development. That's the biggest thing. We must adhere to mutual development opportunities and not be a threat to each other. We should be partners and not competitors. Which means what? The underlying thing is we should partner with China, and they are the top. That is comes through in almost all their talks. We should shoulder international responsibilities and set an example for joint self improvement of the vast number of developing countries, that is, Global South. Contribute to the promotion of multipolarization of the world and democratization of international relations. Then they come to the thing, this is the subtext. It says Indian side actually emphasizes 2 points. First, India still insists on the border issue as the primary issue in the relations between the two countries and insists on linking the border issue with other aspects of bilateral relations. I'm reading it out because this is their words. Understand the Chinese thinking, because everyone thinks and writes, isn't it? So I'm getting their thinking out. Second, India emphasizes that the stable and predictable and friendly bilateral relations between China and India are conducive to a multipolar Asia and a multipolar world. So they feel that we look at multipolar Asia and multipolar world, and they say very glibly, China has never objected to India's so-called multipolar Asia and multipolar world. It can be multipolar, but pole to ek hi hoga, wo hai China. And then all these statements, now their analysis. This is their analysis. He says Indian side statement has profound connotations. First of all, India believes that India must sit on an equal level with China. So that is not acceptable to them. With China in Asia and not allow China to become the dominant country in Asia. Here comes the catch. If the gap between China and India is too large, India should join other countries to check and balance China. So, first and foremost, we should understand that they're not going to give us any freebies. They still treat you as an opponent, if not as an enemy. Okay? Who will check and balance. Secondly, India as a pole in Asia will be the hegemon of South Asia and the Indian Ocean. And they say South Asia and Indian Ocean are India's sphere of influence. That's what they want. That's what they get the feel from India. Okay? It says China cannot cooperate closely with other countries in South Asia. Otherwise, it will infringe on India's strategic interests. So this is their view, and it is right. And they say further in that article, China-India relations are deadlocked mainly affected by three factors. One, strategic competition between China and India. Strategic competition between China and the United States. And here is the cliche. It says this strategic competition between USA and China makes India believe that its strategic opportunity period has come. So they feel India wants to make good with both. Okay? Political and economic and social agenda of Hindu nationalism in India is a serious spillover. It impacts almost all countries around India. So now here comes the ethnic angle or the religious angle. They feel that India is Hindu nationalist society. It will spill over and it affects everyone in South Asia. Pakistan and China have the greatest impact. Okay. And China has become a major grasp for the Modi government to incite its domestic nationalism. So the target of our domestic nationalism is China. That's how they understand it. Very important. And third is personal factors. Mainly Indian Foreign Minister Su Jaishan. They call Subramaniam Jaishankar as Su Jason. who is extremely pro-American, anti-China, to promote the US and India alliance to jointly contain China. Very clear, specific. After the Galwan conflict, he relinked the China-India border issue with other aspects of the relations between the two countries and proposed that the premise of developing relations between the two countries was to resolve the border situation to the so-called state before April 2020. Hu Jisheng is equivalent to digging a trap for China-India relations. He can't jump out of it himself. And of course, he may not want to jump out of it himself. Completely antagonistic. So, what's their view on trade? They want to trade, there's no doubt. They want to enter India and invest and open up and all that. But what do they say? He says the two sides still face the possibility of a sudden escalation of conflicts and differences because the borderline has not been demarcated. They recognize that this is the problem. The current dilemma of China India relations can be said to be caused by India. So you are to blame. Indian intention is very obvious that it is taking advantage of the Sino US dispute. So geopolitical view is there, and this view is there that India wants to take advantage of this whole situation. From a strategic point of view, this will undoubtedly lead to long-term competition between two countries in foreign investment, technology, and market share in the future. So it's not going to be an easy ride for them. Also, they know that, and they're not going to give you an easy ride. Understand that. And then finally, this rounds off. This current Sino-Indian relationship is not optimistic. Exporting dual-use items to them will affect our country. So there's no question of anything with dual use they will not give you. National defense and economic security have a potential negative impact. Now, what further? He says the export of high-tech products to India that may be used for military purposes under the current Sino-Indian relations is actually equivalent to indirectly improving India's military capabilities, which poses a potential threat to China's national security. Here it comes. So they are not going to give you technology and they're going to give you low-tech items. And if you think there's anything else which is going to come from China free of cost, just forget it. So much for Chinese FDI. And if you think that he's going to invest in India and let the control go to you and that you grow and tomorrow finish him off, then we are looking at the wrong door. I think some of us are living in La La Land. Okay. Then in this he says, it has actively allied with US, Japan and other countries to form an Indo-Pacific strategy. Now, against this background, China should evaluate the final use of export more carefully and consider whether to continue to export such sensitive technologies to India. And exporting dual-use goods may eventually flow to hostile forces abroad. That is, other countries, maybe even USA. That's the way they feel it. So they're not going to give you anything free of cost. Let's be very clear about it. It's very naive for our public to think that something China से आपको लड्डू मिलेगा, कोई कुछ नहीं मिलेगा. Look at this headline. This is a headline of South China Morning Post about 2 or 3 weeks back. General Rajiv Narayanan and I spoke about it. And what was that? He says Beijing urges Chinese EV makers to avoid investments in countries like India and Turkey. They don't want to invest. Who do you, are we living in some fool's paradise? The Chinese government is saying on one hand, don't invest in India and don't invest in Turkey. And here, our fools are talking of getting FDI from China. You connect the dots. They will talk. Okay, you go back, we'll come. Their concept of FDI is completely different. I will come to that. We'll come to that. I'll expose this business story. Oh, this is the press note number 3, which was given out on 23rd March 22. Okay, the basic thing, the fundamental thing, let me put it. He says an entity of a country sharing land border with India or where the beneficial owner of an investment into India is situated in or is a citizen of any such country can invest only under government route, which means China, which has a land border with you, cannot invest here. And he says further in this press note, the government has blocked 320 mobile applications, right? And these applications were locked because in the interest of our sovereignty, integrity, defense, and security of the state. Very clearly, this press note, this is a government press note. In February 22, 49 apps were blocked. Right. Why? Because these 42 were rebranded as different apps and sent. Same Purana app, rebranded, new name, new thumbnail, base diya. Okay. So this is the press note number 3. Then what happened? So you see the trade deficit with China. It's going up. They're not opening their things for you to export. And they need rice, they need a lot of agricultural import, but they're not taking from us. They're going all over the world. And today, you see the South China Morning Post. There's an article in that which says that they're shutting off old routes of agriculture import and opening up new in Africa and Latin America and wherever. They're trying to reduce their agricultural dependence on USA. आपसे तो हम लेंगे ही नहीं वो. Your exports are these. And how will you reduce it? I don't know what that economic advisor was talking about. Now, this is the view of that economic advisor or whoever it is has come out. He says India's trade deficit is due to import of industrial goods. And the deficit will only increase as the West diverts away from China. Now, he says as India looks to improve its manufacturing capacity, it will have to increase imports of capital goods. As of now, we have no alternate choices but to depend on China. And as we increase our exports to US and the West, we are increasing our imports from China. That's what the sum total of all this. And he says India faces 2 choices, benefit from China plus 1 strategy. It can integrate into China's supply chain or promote FDI from China. And he says FDI is the preferred option. So सब FDI ताली बजा रहे हैं. इससे बड़ा बेवकूफी कुछ नहीं है मैंने सुना आज तक. Okay. There's a short analysis which I picked. I thought, let me read it out to you. And I'll give you my views. But let's get someone's views. He says Chinese companies investing in India and exporting to Western markets might seem beneficial in the short term. It risks undermining India's long-term economic security and strategic autonomy. Very profound statement. If they invest and then you export, like it is, like Vietnam is doing, Malaysia is doing, Mexico is doing, your long-term economic security and strategic autonomy are at risk. For the simple reason of what I said earlier, they consider you as an opponent. In any case, there's no plan at this point of time to ease the rules in press note number 3. Right? And if you have to increase, you have to take a very hard call on this. I don't know. Right? And so this is the sum total. It's not easy. And I'll now prove it to you why it's not easy. Chinese expectation will be completely political. First and foremost, we have to understand China will view everything politically. I've been saying this always. They will expect us to be on their side or neutral. China will not invest in India without guarantees. Okay. Just understand, we are already looking into cases of tax evasion and all that in 3 mobile companies: Oppo, Vivo India, and Xiaomi. And we are giving them notices, we have arrested people. And here comes the interesting part. The ministry has found that many of these companies are non-existent at their registered addresses. So the benami hai. In some cases, they had received investment, but were now into businesses other than what they were registered for. So they registered for something, money came, they're doing something else completely here. And how is all this feasible? Because they have bribed their way through our system completely and corrupted us. And हमारा politicians, everyone are corrupt. ये अगले देखो आप. Okay, and they're all in incorporation related frauds. Frauds, this is the word people are using. At this point of time, 500 companies are under the scanner for incorporation related frauds. What is incorporation related? They're incorporated for something, doing something else. And actually, loot rahe hain hame. Bas baat khatam. Now, during incorporation of a company, certification is needed from company secretaries and CS. Any company will have a company secretary who keeps a record, and that is a legal record. And the chartered accountant has to do audit and submit. And many of them have, falsely certified these companies. Then there are disciplinary processes and lawsuits against them, and arrests also. Some arrests, CS have also been arrested. And this is not the first time that unscrupulous CAs are on the radar. ये बिक जाते हैं. तो चाइना वाला एफडीआई लेके आएगा, बोलेगा मैं ईवी बनाऊंगा, कुछ और बनाएगा. ये हमारे जो शेयर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स एंड पीपल, दे विल बी गिवन सम मनी, एंड ये कुछ भी करके आपको टोपी लगाएंगे और वो पैसा ऐंटेंगे. Nothing will be on ground. And all this has happened when, despite the trust note number 3, that's the beauty. Despite banning apps, despite not allowing FDI, despite everything, despite putting all regulations in place, ye haal hai. So if you lift all the regulations, if you lift all the thing and allow Chinese FDI, just imagine क्या लूट होगा इधर. लूट. गवर्नमेंट वाले को क्या है, वो बोलेगा. गवर्नमेंट chap will talk. Tomorrow he'll might not be in government. You and I will be in this country. वो पता, वो अपना पैसा बना के चला जाएगा. वो अनंत नागेश्वरन ईश्वरन जो भी उसका नाम है, इकोनॉमिक एडवाइजर, आज गवर्नमेंट में, कल किसी से कुछ हो गया, वो वर्ल्ड बैंक में, IMF में चला जाएगा. You and I will be left with Chinese. ठीक है. तो उतना आसान नहीं है जो सब बोलना. Now, income tax department has a big challenge at hand to prove that Chinese solar firms, we talk solar, we've said na, बिजली बनाओ, export करो, वो सब कुछ. The solar firms were supposed to come and establish things here. Now, the way they've been incorporated, the way they've come and this thing, income tax doesn't know whom to tax them. Okay, here in financial year 22, India imported $3 billion worth of solar photovoltaic cells, panels, and modules from China. All these are in tax fraud. They are under the scanner of income tax department. And they're subsidiaries, everyone. 40 Chinese solar firms are already under investigation. तो आप EVB लेके आओ और एनर्जी बैटरी बूटरी सब ले आओ, सब फ्रॉड होंगे. Everything will be fraud here. As per the current agreement, the Chinese can't be directors in these firms. There's a limit. The managing director has to be Indian, and majority vote and all that. On the board of directors has to be Indian. But in 22 and 23, despite trust note number 3, there were 27 appointments made. They can't be made. As per law, they can't be appointed as directors. But yet 27 Chinese were appointed as directors and 26 and 23. Rules are bent. Now you're legalizing all this. Our economic security is at stake. I mean, I hope someone understands this. Okay? They are completely fraud. Completely fraud. And we want them. I'll just give you, Bhaskar, he says, right, sir, Jai Hind, it is not a question of greedy businessmen. Geopolitics cannot overpower geoeconomics or cash flows, or civilization is wise enough to digest FDI in right way like a binding treaty. What bloody binding treaty are you talking of? Haven't I shown you in solar panels and all that what has happened? There's no binding treaty with China. What is the binding treaty with China? So don't live in la la land. So the second question, he says, oh, you can do a talk with some prominent economist who understands geoeconomics and geopolitics. Some are prominent on Sanjay Ji's JD channel like Ankit Shah. Ankit Shah को यहाँ बुला के मैं करूँगा क्या? चोर तो हमारे यहाँ है. Already thieves are inside here. You don't need economists. You need law enforcement agencies. And वो तो हो नहीं रहा. I mean, people should understand when don't think, firstly, I don't need an economist. By now you should understand a lot of us are good economists. You know why? Because we've dealt our entire life with a lot of major issues. A lot of major issues of economy, with governments, with doing big deals. We know how economy flows. So a lot of our generals understand economics very well. It's not as we don't understand. But this is not a matter of economics, my dear friend. This is a matter of our Indian businessmen. I'm talking of greedy businessmen, fake CAs, fake government, fake government officials. I'm not talking of fake government. A government is good, but what about people who run the government? मोदी जी हर जगह आके डंडा लाके थोड़ी ना खड़ा होगा यार. There are people who have to pass things. उसको पैसा दे दो, घूस दे दो. कोई नया है? So we will be very foolish if you accept Chinese FDI. In any case, they're not going to give you anything. And if they come, they will undercut you, and your territorial integrity, economic sovereignty, and strategic autonomy, all three are at stake. Because if they come, they will be open to your communications, everything, and they'll take your information away, and tomorrow that same thing will be used against you in the border. Please understand why I am against. And this is, you don't have to do great thinking for this. You open the internet and you will get all this data. Fraud. So I'll rest my case here. Any more questions? I'll take it on later on. Okay. We'll now discuss this issue. Interesting. There's a sophisticated information war against India. Is it coming from Canada or China? And today morning when I woke up, I got this idea and I put this tweet out. Canada's info war against India is pretty sophisticated. It aims to discredit India in the West and force it into a Chinese-Russian side. There seems to be a clear Khalistan, Pakistan, and China factor behind Trudeau. He seems to be a pointsman only. Am I the only one thinking like this? And I got a lot of response for this. And then I said, let me discuss this. Let me discuss with all of you. Let me put it out to all of you so that you understand what I'm thinking. The normal thinking in India is that, look, all this is being done by USA. USA karna chahta hai. I agree, USA karna chahta hai. Because USA wants to control us so that we are against China. But USA is also being chalawed. I see that. And this is my theory. So what is this whole story about? ये देखो. Now ये देखते हैं थोड़ा आप so that you have a good idea about what I am talking. This is an article of BBC. Okay. And he says what to know about Canada and China's foreign interference role. This goes back to last year. Last year, there was a lot of, halla gulla in Canada that China is interfering in Canada and its polls and all that. Okay? So, a lot of issues. And BBC comes out with it. So, let's see what the hues of this is. Yeah. Now, it says allegations from leaked intelligence report allege that Chinese diplomats and proxies in Canada tried to sway elections outcomes in the favor of liberals. Who are the liberals? Trudeau. So they paid money so that Trudeau wins. Now, Global Mail is a leading leading newspaper in Canada, and Global News. Now, both of them were concerned, and in fact, their end sources are also concerned that China's Communist Party interfered by putting pressure on its consulates in Canada to support certain candidates. They paid money, and that is very clear. Okay, they paid money. Yeah. Now, what are the whole story of this funding? It's here. The reasons, he says the allegations are that China provided secret funding through its Toronto consulate to 11 candidates, liberals, Trudeau's party, who ran in the 2019 federal election. In 2019, liberals were warned one of their candidates, now a member of parliament, might have been compromised by China. So there's a China nominated MP or whatever you call it sitting in the parliament. Now, Trudeau and that MP both have denied this. Then the MP leaves the Liberal Party. And then we'll say, he's gone to close jo bhi hai. So there's a nexus. So see the nexus between the Liberal Party and Chinese Communist Party and Trudeau. And mind you, it took me 20 minutes to go through the Chinese, what shall I say, internet search to get me this. In 2021, Chinese diplomats and proxies made undeclared cash donations to political campaigns and hired international Chinese students to volunteer for certain candidates full time. So it has happened. Now there's a conservative MP, right, Michael Chong. He and his family were targeted by Chinese government in 2021. Okay, when he tabled a parliamentary motion which accused China of human rights abuses. So now you see the story. It's very clear now that Trudeau's hub and his party have been getting money from China. It could be, it's a different thing. He might not have won only because of Chinese funding. And that's what Canadians also say. It didn't make much of a difference. But the connection is there. But there's no doubt, I'll come to it. There's no doubt of Trudeau winning because maybe little because of this. What about the Khalistan factor? What about the Pakistan factor? हमने सोचा. Okay, then what happens? What's the next headline which is of importance to us? He says, Canada announced the public inquiry whether China, Russia and others interfered in their elections. Proper. Right. ये सब जो भी बवाल वहां का हो गया. Immediately next month, this lady, Melanie Joly, their foreign minister, she goes to China to mend relations. लिखा है, देखो आप. I'll show you full so that you see for yourself. Wang Yi and Melanie हाथ पे हाथ. This is 4 months ago. Okay, pledged to mend relations after foreign ministers meet in Beijing. So happiness. So there is a nexus, isn't it? So Trudeau is not acting on his own. He's an idiot. That is very clear. He's a smart idiot. Or maybe an intelligent idiot. He's a pawn. वो मोहरा है, उसका चल रहा है चाल. Okay, now let's see the sequence of events, because we have to do this from different angles. So let me take you through the sequence of events. Look at this. Now, first and foremost, last year, Trudeau claims Indian involvement in Niger killing. He gave a public. Then, within a month, this Pannu factor emerges in USA. So USA steps into the deal. है ना? उसके बाद lot of action and lot of things settle down and not much happens. October, Canada seeks interrogation of our diplomats. Last month. And then it came to mutual expulsion of our diplomats. And then Canada points its finger at our Home Minister. And now the government has labeled India as a cyber adversary, equivalent to China and all that. So this is the sequence of events in the past 1 year, how this pattern developed. Okay, now look at it. Look at just October, when this whole thing started. Canada restarts its info war, the last three, that green, magenta and blue, and then of course now nominating us as the adversary. Simultaneously, BRICS happens, Modi Z meet, LAC disengagement, and then almost simultaneously USA sanctions Indian firms for supplying parts to Russia. These 4 events have happened. Am I saying something wrong in this? In October, these 4 things have happened. So how do you correlate them? So let me do my analysis. And I hope I'm interesting to you. Okay. And if you people like this video, please press the like button and also subscribe to Gunner Shot. And I also request some of you to become members, because like I said, membership money goes to a noble cause. It doesn't go into my pocket. It doesn't meet my expenses. Okay, let me get back to that slide. Right? Now, you don't need my face. Let me continue. Now, we all know India plus USA outmatch China and Pakistan. They're in a problem. And with Pakistan weakening, China is cornered. Okay. So what do they do? They have to do something. China has to do something, isn't it? To ensure that this equation is changed. So now here comes this. So it picks Canada. That's why I said, what does it do? What does China do to overturn this equation? So it picks Canada. Now let's see Canada. Canada has a lot of Pakistanis and Pakistani influence. Make no mistake. And there's a lot of Pakistani influence in USA also, but I'll come to that later. And then it has a Khalistani influence, and they're politically strong, the Khalistanis there. Okay. And now we have also seen there's a Chinese influence. And all three are friends. I mean, you don't need to be Einstein to say that China and Pakistan will collaborate to do anything against India. And if they can do it against Canada, all the more better. And Khalistanis will be willing partners in this whole deal. And I would like your comments on this, what I'm saying, what I'm going to now hereafter show. Okay. Now, what do these three chaps do? You see this arrows going? Now, let me see. So, they target India and USA. Canada targets India. The Khalistanis also target India, whichever angle. I'll not get into the thing, but they do it. And then the Khalistanis target USA, because all these Khalistanis are all citizens of USA. Okay, so there's pressure on India, and USA is getting compromised, or rather oriented to be against India. Okay, what next? Then here comes Pakistan. Pakistan has a very strong lobby in USA, and in fact, that lobby is so strong that many people in USA don't like India. So you see articles coming up against India in leading newspapers like Washington Post and New York Times, or for that matter, Foreign Affairs, where they say, "Oh, Indian democracy is backsliding. It's no more a democracy. It's almost half an autocracy." And then they start bad-mouthing our Prime Minister, and then they start saying India is very close to Russia. So why should we help it? So this from Canada and Khalistan and Pakistan, you have a different story coming up now. China is in the background. China has vanished from the background. Oh, unke more hain aage. Now, like I said, the Pakistan lobby starts action, and also Canada starts acting. Canada starts acting on USA. It invokes its closeness. After all, Canada can't be left alone because USA has great interest in Canada, and they're mutual of five eyes and all that nonsense. So they start acting. Ignore that Russian thing a little later. I'll come to that. Russia is still in a corner. Now, USA starts acting against India. So we all believe that USA is playing a double tone. I agree it has its own interests, but USA has been instigated. So now you are facing pressure from Canada, Khalistan, and USA. Or when I say Khalistan, Khalistanis. Okay, now Pakistan and China are out of the equation. See how things are happening, how things have evolved, right? And then China appears on this side कि भाई BRICS आ रहा है, ये आ रहा है, वो आ रहा है. First, it pushes Russia into a corner. Russia is cornered because without China's support, Russia can't survive. Whether giving it aid, I won't say aid, items of military value or electronics or whatever it is, and buying their oil, Russia can't survive. So Russia starts playing the Indian tune, or rather the Chinese tune to get India over. And it's in Russia's interest also to have this RSA triangle. But largely Russia is sidelined. And then and then China makes an overture to India. What happened in BRICS? So where is India caught now? Okay. So how do you summarize all this? That's the next question. India is isolated today. It's distanced from USA. FDI trap by China, which is self-propagated, which I explained to you in the first part of this presentation. And Russia is cornered. You don't like this? Let me know. But if you like it, please make it viral. Now, we all talk of this globe. I've always been saying this is the South China Morning Post visualization and all that. So what? Let's summarize it. Let's look at it. It's still there. This basic structure is not gone. Look at USA. It is today mildly antagonistic against you. From China, you are facing a coercive pull. It's pulling, but it's coercing you also. Russia is compromised and it's leaning to China. India is on its own. You need to do Atmanirbharta. अगर आत्मनिर्भरता नहीं है तो you are in a problem. So this is what it is. Are we alive to this? I don't know. I don't know if we are alive to this way of thinking. Look, I'm very confident that our government is alive to this. Okay. But whether we see it in these terms is something which we need to, think of, honestly. You need to rethink the whole story as to how this thing is going to go. Because I think at this point of time, we are in a difficult situation. China is acting through Canada with Pakistan and Khalistan, and that you're getting. And more Canada acts, the more USA will be forced to act. And USA itself today is in an unsure situation because of elections. It can't take a policy decision this way or that way, and you can't talk to anyone. And in this next 1 month, this Canada will continue to ramp up its diplomatic or whatever you call it, information war. Right? It's only vitiating the atmosphere. The more the atmosphere is vitiated about Canada, it's vitiating the atmosphere in Canada. The more the West will rally around Canada. The more the West rallies around Canada, they will like to push India out. And the more that happens, you naturally will now go towards China. And China is pulling you. अब आया समझ में FDI. So, you have to see this in this larger frame. And Russia is not your, can't do much. Russia is looking after its own interests. So it's a limiting factor. So I hope you people have liked this. And if you like it, put it out. Put that thumbs up and all that. And please subscribe to Ghana Shot. I am sure Ghana Shot will be of value to all of you. Okay. And because at times I get good response, at times I don't get good response. But that's the way life is. I'm not too bothered about it. Okay, let's see. Okay, what quantum of China's FDI is being talked of? JP, what kind of thinking can we do? What is the quantum you can think of? Tell me that. You have to be very, very, very seriously thinking differently. I only hope after this, I want your comment because you keep commenting. You give me your comment if what I've said is right or wrong. Okay. So there are a lot of issues. Right. Let me see who are the ones. I'll take your questions. Hmm. How much of C95, 295 is actually made in totally in India? What about the engines? Engines we're not making. We'll make other things. If there we have fairly good capacity. See, in any of these joint ventures which come, it's 50-50. That's the thing. 50% by value, it has to be Indian, 50% from outside. Generally, the fine print I don't know, to be very honest. It'll come out. So don't be in a hurry. Yeah, Dr. Ankit Sharp speaks. I'm not against anyone. One, I don't know him, first and foremost. And second, I don't need him. Those who want to listen to him in his economics and nothing, please go to Sanjay Dikshit ji's channel and watch. हमें कोई इतराज नहीं है इससे. Okay. And we know what our economics is. For what I'm talking, I know my economics. How do you see the Israel-Iran conflict going in the future? What is your gut feeling? My gut feeling is we'll get the contours of what is going to happen only in January. Till then, it will continue like this. No deal will be made because US president. That's the thing. Yeah. Yeah, any company in India can donate to NGO with 80 CCB and claim tax benefit. That's what. Yeah, I agree with you. They do all. They'll exploit you completely. Is it true that every venture in China is somewhat owned by CCP? Completely. There's nothing which is owned in China which doesn't have CCP hand in it. They've taken over Jack Ma's, what's that, complete Ant group. And now it's virtually owned by CCP. Everything in China is owned by CCP except the vegetable vendors and things like that. Even they have to pay a cut to the CCP. Yeah. Will Chinese FDI get backdoor entry to Indian market through BRICS arrangement? If you know, there's no BRICS agreement is not binding. It's not like WTO. It's not binding. It provides a platform for trading. That's about all. There's nothing binding. Okay. Jayant, namaskaram. How are you? I hope you're good. And I like your comments. Your views about the theory that saying Modi's third term when China had no other option but to pull back, knowing well that China is not going to pull back and that can possibly hamper continued their own position towards. Yeah. Look, it's not a theory, it's a fact. There are two ways of looking at this whole story of this third term. One is Mr. Modi is in his third term. The government is quite stable. China has no other option but to come to terms with them because China is running out of time. The other way of looking at it is, look, Mr. Modi has come, but he doesn't have that kind of power which he had earlier, so he can be spoken to. So you have to look at it both ways. Okay, that's how it is. I read somewhere that India-China recent agreements is because Xi Jinping is leaving leadership and the new leadership doesn't want to be attached to that loss. How credible is this? We'll have to see how it comes out, but there's some fundamental truth in what you're saying. And that fundamental truth is that they have problems. And internally, I've been telling you this earlier also. There are a lot of voices within China which say, "Why are we sitting there? For over those 5-6 kilometers of territory, which India is not going to give you anything more, even if you take it. And on the other hand, you acquired a permanent enemy, and our troops are stuck there, and we can't use them anywhere. And it's a huge burden on China to maintain 2-3 lakh troops in Tibet, 6,000 kilometers away. For us, it's only maybe 1,000 kilometers to 250 kilometers. For example, in Sikkim, from Siliguri to the plateau is just about 250 kilometers. You can make it in one day. One day. I made it up and down in one day. Not up and down, up in one day, down in one day. But for China, it has to come from so far. Everything. It's not easy. Okay. So sustaining people out there is difficult. And they're not getting any value. So they had to go back. It was a matter of time. So there are angles to this. You have to read it that way. Right? And so the pressure, like the third plenum which happened in August, that I thought was pivotal. That was the time when Xi Jinping went out of equation and all that. So issues are there, and China is politically unstable at this point of time. No one talks about it, but it is there. You can feel it. Yeah, historically, there's a pendulum dynamic between China and Tibet in their histories, but China, without a common border with Bharat, cannot claim any territories. Look, that is gone, Akash. Now China claims it as its border. We also acknowledge that it's their border. Tibet is part of China in 2003. So now to pull back from that and to reverse needs a lot of thinking. And I don't know, to be very honest, whether uh, our own government has the political capability to do all this. See, political capability to do all this comes from your internal capability. And our internal capability, you will agree with me, politically we are divided and economically we are not that well off as we think we are. We have problems. And our military is not that well equipped. I keep saying this. The Indian armed forces are fully equipped to defend the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation. But if you want the Indian armed forces to be the anchor of a rising India, then you have to invest more in it. And that's not happening. As simple as that. Yeah, I have. Our cyber hygiene is poor. I've heard recently. It's not poor, it's pathetic. We don't even have cyber laws. Yeah, we need data and privacy laws. Can't have our data. It's absolutely pathetic, and we don't want to invest in it. I have got fed up of talking to people to say, invest in cloud, invest in your data security, you invest. No one's bothered. People are interested in making money. Businessmen do not care about political motivations. They care about, no, they care about political motivation as much as they can make profit. They're not interested in India beyond a point. Let me be very honest. A lot of small scale business people are honest, hardworking businessmen. A lot of big people are also honest, hardworking businessmen who root for India. But there is a big chunk of businessmen who are not interested. Okay, but I don't find any problem with it. I hope Indian government makes manufacturing in India more attractive. Yeah, let's see. So far, it's not been able to do it. If people of ANI were not talking about Uber deal, how common people have known, keeping aside their way of seeing things, why Navy and Air Force need to have a MOU with Uber in the first place. I agree with you. I am also not in favor of this MOU with Uber. Uh, so I think the government and Navy and Air Force, leave it to them. Now that the issue has come up, they will reflect on it and something will come out of it. It's not going to die so easily. So I'm not in favor, but I would not like this ANI people to talk nonsense. That I have tweeted out today, and my tweet has gone pretty viral. Four idiots, bad can I, can't badmouth Indian Air Force or Navy. That's not correct. The economic advisor who had died suddenly around Diwali due to some acute intestinal issue on Diwali night, was he the one whose name was being talked of for a few weeks on? No, he is not the one. Vivek Debroy, he is not the one. He never spoke of this. It is that Ananta Nageshwaran Ishwaran or something like that. He's a Karnataka man. Do you think India will be successfully able to pass critical reforms like labor and land? No, it's not. It's not feasible. We have a lot of inequity. It's very difficult. They are politically very difficult to pass these laws. See, everyone says we should compete with China. You can't compete with China. China, they passed labor laws as if they just bulldozed it. The, the choice of not going as per Chinese labor laws was death. That's what how Mao put labor laws through. They're not fair to anyone. That cultural level revolution, 40 million people died. You have to understand that. You have not heard of it. I've lived through that time. We used to hear for a long time about the cultural revolution. People used to tell us what happens in China. So we can never grow like China. We should never be like China. It's a sorry state. Look, let me tell you. Next week, maybe after 9th, 10th, I'm going to start this thing on China climate change and China demographics. You watch, it's a 3 or 4 part series. You'll see where China is. Yeah, let me. Yeah, before calling out ANI, these incidents have happened. Army commanders pulling generals regarding boss system, Navy MOU. I think you are a free thinker. You're thinking too freely. Okay, don't unnecessarily look at ghosts where they don't exist. The Army, Navy, and the Air Force have a pretty transparent system about each other. How is China able to subsidize its manufacturing industry? If it is sustainable, we can replicate it. We cannot replicate it because their government is different, our government is different. In the Chinese system, it's a communist system. The bank doesn't play the role of a bank. The bank is only a place where money is kept. Okay. The government and the bank are one and the same, two sides of the coin, not for us. RBI governs the financial system. There, the government governs the financial system. There's a big change, different. When Army ordered $1 billion worth of Apache for high altitude operation, turns out it is not capable enough to fly at altitude. Now going back to present. Look, I don't know who told you that Apache can't fly there. Who told you this? So don't come and spread nonsense here. So hereafter, I'll ban you if you talk this nonsense. If you don't know, ask. Don't proclaim anything. I've taken this up to tell people he might be a bot, for all you know, who has put all this nonsense. Because the thinking sahi hona chahiye. Maybe to scare people. No. Yeah. Is there any other question? Yeah. Given the experience of West with China and West's current disposition with us, we have no other option but to move up the ladder only by the hard way. I completely agree with you. You have to do everything on your own. You have to do everything on your own. There's no doubt. Okay. Right. We seem to be having a bad relations with USA at this point of time. Whole issue with Canada cannot be seen in isolation. This China deal is temporary to have some. No, I don't think so. This is all interrelated. There's nothing temporary which is going on. It's going as per a plan. You know, I told you there is a lobby for China within USA. Please understand that. And maybe someday I'll show to you how China has, what shall I say, infiltrated into USA. I mean, today USA is stuck because it allowed China to infiltrate its society. Sir, if all government, central and state strictly deliver on 7 most essentials, law and order, mitigation of crimes, education, medical and healthcare, infra and transportation, yeah, I think everything will be okay. Just as, look, what you're saying is right, but will they? That's the problem. Do they? That even if they forget 100%, even 50% if they deliver, will be okay. That's the problem with most of our governments. They talk, they don't deliver. That way I do appreciate China because they deliver. And if you have to go up the Chinese Communist Party ladder, you have to deliver. Whether the delivery is good or not is a different story. You have to deliver and you have to be competent. Here, that is not the point. Here, the competence of a different variety. Republican government is better for us than Democratic. Oh, well, it depends on the president who comes. We'll see how it happens. There's no silver bullet for this. All this talk of Chinese FDI, irrespective of economic advisor, do you see any reception from Indian government? Yes, there are a lot of people who want to run to China. That's why it's just not that economic advisor. It is also the finance minister who's endorsed his words. The attack on Bharat is the handiwork of the proverbial deep state. For them, USA, Europe, Canada, China, and large parts of the world are but slave states to be applied in. Yeah, I agree with you. Now the question is, which is the deep state? What do you think about the Indian Air Force Uber agreement? Do you think IAF data will be leaked to? Look, there's a problem there. Personally, I feel we shouldn't have done it, but the IF has done it. Indian Navy has done it, and the MOD knows about it. So, if you give credit to the Air Force, the Navy, and the government, because such deals can't be entered into without government sanction or government okay. So, if you've done this, they would have taken some precautions. We have not heard what they have said. We are now discussing without hearing what the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy has said. So let them say, let them talk. Maybe they'll be having a relook. Okay. Even we have some Chinese funded people. Yeah, I agree with you. There's no doubt. Yeah. Will West hate blame us for everything as we did not stand with West against Russia? If we had, then this Putin would have went back within 6 months. No. All this other, nothing would have happened. Russia is a strong country on its own. You should understand that. Which is the biggest motivation for troop withdrawal for Chinese? Access to the Indian market or Indian neutrality? All, both. They have 5, 6 factors why they withdrew. All are equally important. Do you foresee a Chinese attack on Taiwan? No. Thanks, Satish. Thanks a lot. Just spread it to your friends. Slides are out of focus. Well, I spoke whatever are there, so it's okay. If you heard me, it's good enough. And if you stop the video, you'll get the slides. How has India helped Canada? One way to benefit for Indians just adds pressure to all Canadian systems. So easy for China to turn Canada. No, India has not helped Canada at all. There's no this thing. Yeah. Any prediction on US election outcome? Well, let's see. My gut feeling is between Trump and Kamala, Trump will be the better person for India, but both will be difficult. Okay. Where's the next question? Okay. What is this purpose of this analysis? You rely on the open source material. However, what are the chances of material to be tainted from the source itself? I don't look at one source. I look at multiple sources. And incidentally, OSINT, this is a proven factor. OSINT, 80% of intelligence is OSINT. Open source material is 80% of intelligence. Okay, the other 20% is other forms of intelligence. So OSINT is very good if you can connect the dots. So the purpose of this analysis, well, you take it the way you want it or not. I'm very clear. I have to put Indian interests ahead, right? So that tell everyone about why do we need or not need FDI from China. We need to understand why Canada is doing what it is doing. You have to understand the deep hand of China. If you don't understand the deep hand of China and what it's coming through Canada, how will you deal with China for the LAC, FDI, and all this nonsense? The whole story is not over. There's no peace with China. Please understand that. And I've shown you the Chinese thinking. So this is a 360-degree thinking, which I keep doing. You should do a podcast with Major General Bakshi. He's on a different wavelength, so I am not too keen to get him here. Who do we write to stop this Chinese love? Okay. Supreme Court, NIA, ED, Income Tax Department. By ye government Modi ji ke likhe. He is the only one who can handle this. This equation was always true, save for China. May I remind you the hostility and HR charade of Canada for issuing visas to armed forces. Yeah, I agree with you there. I have no doubt about it. There was always a problem with China. But suddenly, why has this spiked? That's the question. Why is it spiked in this month? That is the question you have to ask yourself. Many people from the armed forces never got visa into Canada. I never applied for it when I came to know. That has always been there. That Khalistan that they were sheltering was always been there. But I'm talking of a new paradigm which has come out. We have to recognize that paradigm. Why? Not to deal with Canada. Canada you can deal. You will, and after 2 months this will blow over, and the new president will come, and we'll start making some. You will make some modicum of understanding with USA. You need all this thinking to deal with China. That's the point. And authentic India is the best goal. Yeah, I agree with you. You need to be yourself. Khalistan is a combined project of USA and Pakistan. A lot of Khalistan live in, yeah, we know that. How do we handle it? You don't have anything. You have to do black ops. No choice. Your observation on India's situation hits the bullseye 100%. Thanks a lot, Venkatesh. I like people talking on matters like this openly on YouTube. CIA and similar entities from different countries that operate secretly will be thoroughly exposed as a result of this. I hope so. Yeah, what is the American interest in the Middle East vis-a-vis oil, considering they are self-sufficient, even export oil? Also, please explain the concept of petrodollar and its significance. I'll do a separate podcast on this. Okay, why in USA is there, but fundamentally it has to control the West, the Middle East. If it doesn't control the Middle East, China and USA will come and sit there, and then it will only be in across the Atlantic. Europe will fall. Europe is energy deficient. What is this IMEC all about? IMEC is all about to open a corridor into Europe to come to Europe's aid. So thank you. Thanks a lot, MOD. Yeah, Venigala Nagendra. I think China's strategy should be anything in this point. I think we need to think of all possible cases and have the ability to stop any type of attack as life, anything can happen. And yeah, I agree with you. You have to be ready for whatever happens. You cannot be ready if you don't think about it. If it doesn't happen, fine. If whatever my hypothesis is, if it's not correct, it doesn't matter. It's trash. Good evening. We've had a good discussion, everything. But what if it happens? Your saying is true. China will launder Russian rupee balance due to petrol import. Russia is transferring the rupee balance to China through. Yeah, I agree with you. All FDIs are due for strict and equal scrutiny. It has declined to quarter of the peak of 85 billion to 22 billion. We need. I agree, Arunachal. We need a lot, but you would like to open the floodgate and get flooded. That choice is ours. That's the point. You have to put things in place. Do we have the capability to do it? You will be better off without the FDI from China. See, why are we not getting FDI from other places and converting it? Why are we only after electronic vehicles and batteries? There's so many exports you can do to USA to replace what China is exporting. China exports even zips to USA. Can't you make good zips and send, or LED bulbs or whatever? There is some fundamental problem with the way we do things. We have to acknowledge that for ourselves. If China gives a few $1 billion to Adani, there are politicians here who will willingly sell India to China. Yeah, what can the ordinary say? You can do nothing. You can only vote this government out if that happens. Or take your choice. I mean, can you do anything else? The only power you have is your vote. Why are these liberals and Marxists against our cultural? Well, you're a threat. And the liberals and the Marxists, the left-leaning guys, they want power. Communism is all about power. To control 1.5 billion people is a dream. Russia and even perhaps US talk of RIC being a bulwark against the West. But how is it that possible when both China and US are so deeply entrenched? Look, there's a problem which we'll have to continue to keep handling. There's no point in continue to talk about it. Yeah, 13,000 components out of 14,000 components of C95 are made in India. Even Tata is planning to make. Yeah, this all will. Let's see how it happens. Okay. We are facing major delay in GE engines. It's compromising national security. What solution is most realistic and feasible given we spend less than 2% of GDP on defense? Look, you have to be politically savvy with USA. The GE engines have to come from there. They'll not, unless you are okay with them, you'll not get them. Or you go to France and get the other engine. As simple as that. Or ask Russia to give you engine. There's no problem. You have choices. But you need to be very clear about your political choices in this. Okay. Yeah. As far as this 2% of GDP on defense is concerned, see Shekhar Gupta's article today in print. He's written about this. He gives a good explanation. I do not think Chinese investment in India is a good idea. We don't have a Chinese investment. We didn't have Chinese investment before 1990, but India still survived. Indian government during that time never cried. Yeah, I agree with you. I am not for Chinese investment. Let's do on our own. Let's rise on our own slowly and steadily. Because the faster you go up, the faster you'll fall. And that's what's happening to China. Do we have breakdown of existing Chinese investments already in place in India? And is there a threat perception? Yes, there is. Both. We have a clear idea and there's a threat perception. The threat is they're corrupting you internally. They're doing tax evasion, so your money is getting filtered out. And they're also spreading a network after mobiles and solar panels are wildly sent out or used in India. There's a network, and that network you're being compromised. Yeah, you have given an in-depth analysis which is easily understandable to common man. Thanks a lot, DM. So again, my request is please get your friends to watch and subscribe to the channel. While your theory is interesting and apparently China is the one who benefits from the India, Canada, USA spats, USA didn't have to Trudeau's go to defense. Important thing is how to use this to our advantage. We don't have a game plan at this point of time, and you can't have till the new president comes in. And China, USA has been shell out in this case. As simple as that. Your talk of rising India, you talk of grey rhino. Yeah, there are problems. We'll face it. Don't worry. India is pretty resilient. I'm quite confident. North Korea has been acting berserk lately, blowing up roads and testing, even sent troops to Ukraine. What does Kim want? Diverting attention away from China, or is he bored? I've done a small episode on that, and it's go search on Gunner Shot. You'll get a small episode, this blowing up tracks and all that. I did it. I've done this episode. You are exactly right on Chinese FDI. My question was if a number has also been given to. I really that won't be easy. You have to go step by step. Karthik Danda, with all due respect to the armed forces and to you, the recent deal between Indian Air Force and Uber. Look, why they didn't think someone must have gone wrong. I also agree with what you're saying. Someone has made a mistake. We'll see how it will get corrected now that it's in public. It will get corrected. Don't worry. Now, hereafter, I'll take new questions. Huh? China maybe wants to avoid middle income traps, so looking at FDI in India. Can we bargain them for leaving? They'll not happen. All this is wishful thinking, Anand. They will not go anywhere. Okay? I've told you the Chinese opinion. I've shown you in the beginning. If you're not, go back to the beginning and see the Chinese opinion. They hate us. Please understand, the Chinese don't like us. Okay. Which is the new one? Yeah, thanks for taking stand against Samosa Warren. I thought I must. Yeah. Right. And if they talk more, I'll take it up. I have no problem. I have no problem. And all of you have criticized the Air Force. I'm also criticizing the Air Force. I also don't like what they've done. They might have a number of justification. Maybe the MOD has been taken and maybe they have taken all this thing. I still don't like what they've done. Okay. you people have said, I agree with you, but I don't badmouth them. They're going to protect us, damn it. How can you call them duckan? Those five duckans. Yeah. Let me ask only new people. We are running out of time. We are close to 1.5 hours. What do you think about India? Fast will be able to develop its own thorium. It'll take time because unless you have adequate plutonium, okay, you can't go in for the thorium cycle, and you have to get that out of your fast breeder reactors. Go back into that video which I did on the, and you'll see the timeline. Somewhere around 2030-35 is when you will be able to, unless you get more plutonium from Russia, in which case you can do it by about 2013, earliest, not before. You spoke of Japanification of China months ago. Now this issue is being discussed more and more. Japanification was accompanied by reduction in Japan's GDP. Same, yeah. So you now people are talking. I spoke about it months back, isn't it? Whatever I've spoken has come correct. That's what I want to tell you guys. Whatever I've spoken about China, it's come correct. Because these are things happening. So that's why I'm going to talk. Incidentally, 10th we are going to talk of it. 10th I've asked Rajiv Narayanan will come and talk of many things. Yeah, excellent and thought-provoking analysis. At this time, with the laying duck US government, it is fair to assume that China is strategizing many games. This also shows our establishment needs to evolve. Yes, I agree with you. Okay, so I'm going to skip because I don't see many questions. Yeah. सैल्यूट टू जनरल साहब. अब हमें चाइना से कबर डर रहना चाहिए और अपने डेवलपमेंट पे फोकस देना है. किशोर महबूबानी के स्टेटमेंट देखो यार. किशोर महबूबानी इज हिमसेल्फ वेरी चाइनीज, हाफ अ चाइनीज है वो. उसका स्टेटमेंट अगर देखोगे तो आप खड्डे में जाके गिरोगे. ठीक है, वो खुद चाइना का नौकर है. If Chinese investments are allowed, how should Chinese citizens react and resist? Is the backdrop of how East India Company first came to India to do. You don't have a choice. If your government allows, people will buy. People will buy cheap Chinese stuff. After all, people in India want anything cheaper, they will go. That's what my worry is. See, it's nice for me to talk. I will not have anything Chinese because I earn enough. I still earn enough. Okay. But what about the common man? What about the laborer on the street? उसको पैसा नहीं मिलता है भाई. उसका रोजी रोटी पूरा नहीं होता है यार. How many people will be there like me who will give money to school children, do YouTube? Why do you think I'm doing this YouTube? I'm doing all this nonsense on YouTube because I can earn some money to educate girls who can't study on their own. If some really Chinese money comes in between, that girl will take that and जो भी करेगी करेगी. Corruption. It's all corrupting the system. Yeah. Our young famous travel YouTuber, they'll do that. This is what it is. All these fellows are getting sponsored trips. They'll showcase China, they'll visit electronic markets, expose ये वो, all that. These are all आपको बेवकूफ बनाने के लिए. Yeah, first person I've heard pulled out the hot gas from elevated balloon, brought it to realistic levels. I've been through your articles. Yeah, thanks a lot. You'll see none of my what I said about China are going wrong, and I'm going to do again. I want all of you please come and watch that thing which I'm going to do about climate change. Maybe two or three episodes plus one on Tibet, and then I'll do on population. Then you'll understand where China is going. It's going nowhere. Okay, I think we've done for the day. Thanks a lot for attending. And tomorrow, I'm going to do something very interesting. I'm going to do an episode and give you an overview on the 1947-48 J&K operations. No, many of us don't know what happened in J&K in 47-48. Okay, so I'm getting Colonel Ajay Singh. He's done a lot of research on it, and we will have his company and he'll explain to us about J&K and 47 ops. Little different, but well, it's our history, and I would like most of you or get your friends to know about what happened, how Indian Army saved Kashmir. He'll explain it to you in great detail. Okay, so with this, thank you, good evening, and Jai Hind to all of you. Have a great day.